How y'all doing? Good. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you to AASHTO for all that you're doing for having me. I'm humbled anytime anybody asks me to do that, which I think I've been put on this earth to do, because 20, 30 years ago, no one made a dollar bet that Calvin Mackie will be standing before anybody, speaking about anything, let alone STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education for this country. I'd like to say thank you to my friend Sean. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your mentorship. Just to be able to see you as, do the things that you've done in the state of Louisiana, give all of us hope about the possibilities of tomorrow. Thank you. I had the opportunity to serve on the Louisiana Recovery Authority in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. I used to be an engineering faculty member at Tulane University, and I was thrust into politics. And it was great to have someone that I can talk to about this madness that I had found myself in. And to Eileen, I want to say thank you to you. I'm quite familiar with your work with the Society of Women Engineers. And I just want you to know, Puerto Rico is very dear to my heart. I want you to know that I've swam in Cabo Rojo. I visited University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. I've eaten the ice cream in Ponce. I've actually played dominoes while pulling pork off a pig while drinking medallions in an alley in Guayama. So you know I've been to Puerto Rico. And I wish the best for you all. And again, I'd like to say thank you to all of you all. And again, before I get started, there's a couple of caveats I gotta give out. Rocky, my wife, believes that I'm ADD and I've never been treated before. So there's no way I can stand at the podium and do it like most keynotes do it, because I end up throwing the thing over the thing, then I gotta pay the people. So it's, she thinks she's a pharmacist. She believes I'm ADD. And people say, you must keep him medicated or something. Greg, thank you for that introduction, and thank you to Trimble for the sponsorship. Caveat number 2, John, don't confuse my passion with anger. Everywhere I go around this country, not around the world, when I open my mouth, usually there's somebody in the back and say, that's an angry young black man right there. I said, no, I'm not angry. I'm just passionate. And Dr. Martin Luther King said, at the end of the day, it's not the words of our enemies we shall remember, but the silence of our friends. When we look at the issues that's facing our country, we look at things that our communities are dealing with. When you look at communities that have been disconnected, you look how different laws and policies have been passed to separate people rather than bring them together. Look like somebody should be angry, look like somebody should be mad, look like somebody should be marching in the street. But I'm not angry, I'm just passionate. And that's true, I'm happy to be here today with other passionate people. People committed to service and committed to communities. I thank you for what you do. You are actually the most wealthy people in the world. And people say, Mac, how can you say the most wealthy people in the world? There's 2,600 billionaires. There's 14.2 billion millionaires in the world. How could we be the most wealthy people in the world? Because there's 2 types of wealth in this world. The first type of wealth is making money. And we see that on the news every day. And that's the lowest form of wealth. But the second form of wealth is making a difference. And that's the highest form of wealth. And when you get up every day, everything that you do, every pen you put to the paper, every thought that you have one purpose, and that's making a difference in the life of your citizens. From the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for your commitment to that. Now, I remember growing up in the city of New Orleans, and we moved to a place called the Seven Water. I was talking to somebody the other day. They said, man, where you from in New Orleans? I said, I'm from Back of Town, Gert Town, Zion City. I'm from the Lord Nine, where we don't mind dying. I said, I started in the bottom. And I remember we moved to another part of town. And I stand here today before you as an engineer. And there's things that happen in transportation in my life that really brought me to this point. When I moved around LSU School of Dentistry in New Orleans, they had a little waterway called Bayou St. John. I used to walk around with my 202 Zebco reel in my trunk, and for my fishermen, you all know what I'm talking about. And I used to ride my bike out to the bayou, and I used to fish. And right along the bayou, there was a railroad track, and I used to go across the railroad track, and I used to take my friends, we would take quarters and nickels and pennies out of our pocket, and we would take them and put them on the tracks and wait for the train to come. After the train rolled over, we were like, wow, look what the train did to this, these nickels. But then my cousins lived on the other side of the track, so you'd have to cross the track and run across this field to go see my cousins. And they'd get on their bike and we'll go fishing and we'll do things like that. And then before you know it, they start building this highway system, the I-610, exchange right through there. And then I started to jump across the track, then I had to run across all this construction. But once they finished the interstate system, I could no longer get to my cousins. And they had a bridge going across Bayou St. John. So in order for my cousins and I to get together to fish, we literally had to shimmy under the bridge. Hopefully there was enough space under the bridge that we can get to each other so that we can fish and play. And I used to stand there all the time and say, who did this? Who did this? Such that if I wanted to see my cousins, see my family, literally I had to put my life at risk. If I went to see my family, see my cousin, I had to take a bike and then go all the way around. But seeing that train go by, seeing those workers build that interstate system, looking under that bridge, and I was blown away by how can these cars be on this bridge and stay there, that inspired me really to be an engineer. Because I started to think, whoever did this, there's got to be some powerful people, some smart people, and that's what I want to be. And I never forget, my uncle came to visit me, and he bought me an erector set. My father dropped out of school in the 8th grade to pick cotton. My mother went to a state-approved Negro high school. I grew up in a house with no books. My uncle had moved to California, and he was doing construction work. He came back, and he bought me a little erector set. And I built a car, and he and my daddy was in a corner drinking their libations, like we do in New Orleans. And the car went across the floor, and my uncle jumped up and said, that boy's gonna be an engineer. I never heard of one, couldn't spell it, wouldn't know one if I ever seen it. But he said that boy is gonna be an engineer. And that made me think about, when I think about those stories, that inspired me to do the things that my uncle did for me, such that we can build a talent pipeline that this country needs. And I think about a lot of things. And I thought about a quote I was looking at the other day, and Henry Ford said, when asked about the Model T, he said, why are you building the Model T? He said, everybody want to be somewhere they ain't, and when they get there, they want to go back to where they were. So as the stewards of safety and mobility and equity and access, your job is to make sure people can get to places safely and with efficiency and get back to where they are. And that's a great responsibility. I thought about another quote from the poet Edward Markham when he said, why build these cities glorious if man unbuilded goes? In vain we build the world unless the builder grows. And that means as engineers, when we go through the process of building for communities and bringing communities together and doing things such that people can have a better life, not only are the people supposed to change, but they're supposed to do something to us. We're not supposed to be the same individual. We're not supposed to be the same person. When we go through a process of developing a community, it's supposed to transform us if the work that we're doing is truly about the community. If the work that we're doing is just about the Green Book and the standards that have been put before us, and we're going to do just what we've been taught to do and designed to do, we build these cities in vain. Because not only do we not grow, but the people that we claim and pretend to want to serve, they don't grow either. And I think about President Hoover and his memoir when he asked about the engineering profession because he was an engineer. Hoover said the engineering profession is a great profession. It has great responsibility, but he spoke about the liability of the engineer. He said the engineer has a great liability. He said the engineer has a great liability because she does her work out in the open for the world to see. He said if the engineer work doesn't work and it fails, he's damned because the world gets to see his failure. He said the engineer is unlike a doctor that can bury his mistakes. He said, an engineer is not like an architect that can hide his mistakes behind trees and shrubbery. He said, an engineer is not like a lawyer that can try to argue his mistakes away or blame it on a judge. He said, an engineer is not like a politician that can try to blame all his mistakes on his opponent on the opposite side of the aisle and hope at the same time that the people forget. He said an engineer is damned if his work doesn't work. And that's the great liability before you all every day, to make equity and access. When when you create the future, when you create tomorrow, it is your responsibility to create a safer, smarter, more sound community, but for everybody. That is our challenge before us. So 10 years ago, I started an organization by the name of STEM NOLA. STEM NOLA is to expose and inspire and engage communities in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We live in a country right now that makes sure every boy touches a football or basketball before the age of 4, and no one questions that. But yet with 3,300 colleges and universities, they have no workforce problem. As a matter of fact, the NFL, no. Every year they're going to have a draft, and the best and the brightest, the most strongest, the most wonderful athletes in the world are going to rise up to the top, and they don't have a workforce problem. But as soon as we start talking about putting STEM in the hands of every boy and every girl and every community in this country before the age of 4, such that they can dream, such that they can have hope, such that they can change the world, people say, what are you talking about? Not only does the engineer have a great liability and a great responsibility, but your work, you're a purveyor of hope. For many communities, for many people, for many other children, the only thing they have is the hope that you're going to do what's right by them. And every day when you get up, every day when you do your job, every day when you try to rebuild your island, hope you think about the fact that there are people out there that you may not ever know, that may not ever know your name, that has hope that you're going to do the right thing. You are the purveyor of hope. And this thing called hope is not play. I know somebody ran for hope and used the word hope, and now people believe hope is a four-letter word, but hope is not a four-letter word. Hope is the only thing that took a place called America from where it was. Hope is the only thing that brought a place called America to where it is today, and hope is the only thing that's going to take America to where it needs to be in the future. There's only one real thing in a place called America, and that is hope. And I don't care what anybody says. To me, America is still the greatest country in the world because this is the only place in the world where you can get up and create a better tomorrow for yourself. And that's because we believe. We have hope. I have a friend named Dr. Truth, and Dr. Truth said, Brother Mackie, when you lose money, you've lost a lot. You've lost a little. He said, when you lose a friend, you've lost a lot. He said, but when you lose hope, you've lost it all. And as I go around this country and talk to people, look in the eyes of many of our young people, look like they've lost it all. So we have to do the things necessary to bring back hope to a place called America, such that our children want to be us and do the work that we are doing to continue the legacy that we are doing with the work that we are doing right now. This thing called hope is real. Hope is the thing that caused the old lady to sit down on a bus and caused an entire nation to stand up. Hope is the thing that made Eisenhower sign the Federal Highway Act in 1956 and create the greatest public works program in the nation, such that you all are still working on it today. Hope is the thing that made Tuskegee Airmen believe they can fly airplanes when their own government told them they couldn't. Hope is the thing that made Patrick Henry say, give me liberty or give me debt. Hope is the thing that made even our founding fathers right. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal. Hope is the thing that made John F. Kennedy say, don't ask what your nation can do for you, ask what you can do for your nation. Hope is the thing that made even George W. Bush, my friend, when he ran for president the second time, entitled his stump speech, The Duty of Hope. Even Ronald Reagan, when Ronald Reagan talked about the shining city on the hill, he said America's the last best hope for man on earth. Now that's some hope for your behind. Hope is the thing that took a black preacher in Alabama and made him believe he can have a dream to change the world. Hope is the thing that took a 47-year-old man in South Africa and sent him to jail for 27 years, and he came out a world leader. Hope is the thing that took a black boy with a white mom and a goat-herding daddy in a place called America and made him believe he can be president. A whole lot of people said, no, you can't, but America stood up and said, yes, you can. You see, AASHTO, hope is that little voice in your head that whispers maybe when the whole world is screaming no. And I don't know about you. I don't know where you come from. I don't know your mama. I don't know your daddy. From where I come from, I thought when I was coming up, I thought my name was No. Can I go over there? No. Can I go to your school? No. Can I do this? No. You think I can be a doctor? No. You think I can go to your college? No. Can I work over there? No. Eileen, many of the beautiful young women I knew in my life when I was growing up, I used to ask them for their phone number. You know they used to tell me? No. But you see, Sean, back in the day, they didn't want me, but now since I'm hot, I don't know who's telling communities no. I don't know who's telling our children no. But when you show up, You have to tell them yes. You have to build a better world. You have to build a better community. You have to reconnect communities. You have to use your heart and your head when you're developing the infrastructure of the future, because every community deserves it. They deserve it. And history has taught us, history has shown us, especially transportation history has shown us that that has not always been the case. And we got to hope. My family got to hope. The little children we work with got to hope that the men of the day and the women of today will learn from the mistakes of the past to create a better tomorrow for everybody. That's the challenge before us. That's the challenge before us. And every community deserves that. So when you're sitting there, and I'm hard on engineers because I got like 3 engineering degrees. I know my people. I know how we just think linearly. But we got to bring community back into this thing called design. Let the community inform us of what they want. And that's what we've done with this organization called STEM NOLA. And I created STEM NOLA to give kids kits like my uncle gave me, because I am those kids. See, when I grew up in New Orleans, I had a wicked crossover and a jump shot, Andy, that just wouldn't quit. I thought I was going to go to the NBA and save my family. When I used to walk in the gym, whole gym would go, shh, because it was going to be raining threes all night long. And one night I took a long jump shot, one of the few jump shots I missed, ricocheted off the rim, and I went to get the ball, but a young man beat me to the ball, and he grabbed my ball in my arm. They went that way, I went this way, and I traumatically separated my shoulder. I went to the hospital, the doctor came in, the doctor looked, the doctor ran back out. Doctor came back in with 4 more doctors. And they took the 4 doctors, took a sheet, and they tied me up, and they did a tug-of-war and popped my shoulder back in. They said, young man, there's 2 things we want to tell you. I said, what? They said, 1, you suffered a traumatic shoulder separation. They said, 2, you'll never be able to play basketball again. My dreams was destroyed. I went home, and my coach knocked on the door, and knock, knock, knock. He says, Ms. Mackie, I'm sorry to tell you, but your son will never be able to play basketball again. My mom looked at me. She said, what are you going to do now? We told you to study. We told you to study. I said, Mama, what about my shoulder? She said, boy, get in this house. Now, that's a real mama there. We need more mamas like that. I got in the house, and I laid in the bed, and I looked and said, God, what am I doing? God said, boy, don't worry about your shoulder. You're going to do more for this world with your head than you ever thought you'd do with your legs and your arms. I got up the next day, and I went to school to find my favorite teacher, Miss V. When I got to school, I said, Miss V, you heard about my... She said, shut up, Kelvin, Yasmin. She said, we heard about your shoulder. She said, but what are you going to do now? We told you to study. We told you to study. I said, Ms. V, I don't know. She said, Kelvin, I don't know. I don't know ain't good enough no more in the 21st century. She said, in the 21st century, there only be 2 types of people, Kelvin. Those in the know and those not in the know. And Kelvin, we need you to be in the know. AASHTO, our children in the 21st century need to be in the know. And the only way they can be in the know is if we take what we know and bring it back to them. And Ms. V said, what you going to do, Kelvin? I said, I don't know. She said, Ms. V, she said, Kelvin, what you going to do? I said, Ms. V, I'm going to be an engineer. She said, who, you? You grew up in a house with no books. Life and death lives in a tongue. She said, Kelvin, you know what an engineer does? I said, no, but it sounds real good. She said, well, look, Kelvin, you're going to be an engineer. You got to go take this test. I said, what test? She said, the SAT. I said, what? I said, I got to go take the SAT. Now, I was so ignorant. Don't get bent out of shape when people call you ignorant. Ignorant means you just don't know. Stupid means there's no hope for you. I was just ignorant. Kanye West, stupid, all right? I was just ignorant. I was so ignorant, when they told me to go take the SAT, I thought SAT meant Saturday. And then I knew it meant Saturday, because then they told me the test was on. Genius. So that Friday, Tim, they took me, I took my little girlfriend to the game on that Friday night, and I got my boogie on, my broke arm, and I got up on Saturday morning to take my Saturday test. And when I got there, all the young people who had been mentored and properly studied and participated in your after-school program and your ride tech program and things like this, they was nervous, they were biting their nails because they knew it was a very important day. But nobody could tell me nothing. I put my head down. They had to wake me up. So, young man, wake up, take this test. And when I got that test, I looked at it, and I was so ignorant, I didn't know that word, it's to that word, it's to that word, it's to that word. So you all know what our children do when they don't know what they're supposed to know. I start going A, B, C, D, D, C, B, A, B. Whoa, I better change this thing up. C, B, C, B, A. Yeah, I know my kind. That's how y'all did. I looked around. I was the first one finished. I was like a bunch of dummies and put my head back down. They had to wake me up, say, young man, wake up. Go home. And back then, we didn't have Facebook, MySpace, YouTube, website, or the internet. We had to wait 6 weeks on our scores. And when I went to the mailbox, I pulled my scores out. I ripped them open. I looked at them. And I said, oh, yeah. And I went to school to find Miss V. When I got to school, Miss V said, Kelvin, you got him. I said, I got him, Miss V. Miss V said, Kelvin, how did you do? Monica, ignorantly and confident, I looked at Miss V. I said, Miss V, I got 84%. She said, Kelvin, 84% on the SAT? That's unbelievable, Kelvin, especially for you. She said, Kelvin, I never heard the test explained in percentages before. She said, what's your raw score? Don, what's your total score? Ignorantly and confident, I looked at it and I screamed, 840. She said, no, boy, you got some issues. She said, the test is not out of 1,000. The test is out of 1,600. You don't have 84%. You barely have 50%. You need to go take this test again. I said, no, not that Saturday test. I do much better on Fridays. But she said, Kelvin, look, you still want to be an engineer? I said, yes. She said, Kelvin, man cannot create a test to measure what God has put within you if you're willing to work towards it. She said, Kelvin, there's a college recruitment fair in the New Orleans Superdome next Saturday. That next Saturday, I went to the Superdome. I kicked that door open. And when I walked in, the first table I saw was the Georgia Tech engineers. I'm like, this is like divine intervention. Go to the Georgia Tech table. The guy at Georgia Tech said, what can I do for you, son? I said, man, I'd like to be an engineer. He said, you're at the right place. We had a rambling wreck from Georgia Tech and heck of an engineers. I was like, yeah. He said, son, what's your SAT score? I was like, 840. The man had conniptions. He was like, oh. He wouldn't even give me an application. He said, you can't come to this school. You know, and my point is just because a place is ranked number one, that doesn't mean it's number one for everybody. A lot of time in our industry, we're saying we're going to go recruit the best. That doesn't mean that the best is where you think the best really is. That school wasn't for me, and he just happened to point at a table. Guy at the table, no skirt on the table. He said, go over there. And I went to that table. And the guy said, what can I do for you, son? I said, man over there told me to come over here. He said, son, what you want to be? I said, I want to be an engineer. He said, what's your SAT score? I said, man, I can play some ball. He said, no, I need those scores. I said, man, I can dance. He said, no, I need those scores. This time I whispered. I said, 840. He was shaking his head. He said, you're a diamond in a rough, son, but you're a diamond sure enough. Come to Morehouse College. We'll make you into a doctor. We'll make you into a lawyer. We'll make you into an engineer. See, as recruiters and people looking for long-term workforce development, we have to help build pipeline and pathways to make sure our kids know there's opportunities everywhere in every community, not just at the so-called best places. I started Morehouse, and they said, boy, see spot run? I said, no. They said, right. They said, don't pass, go. You're reading on about an 8th grade level. And they put me in remedial reading, developmental mathematics. The test said I shouldn't be in college, but people believed in me and gave me a pathway. Every day I went down to a basement of a building. Every day let the words go by faster and faster. And every day, Sean, I read and I read and I read. Every day my friends got up and they laughed and they laughed and they laughed. And I got up and I worked and I worked and I worked and I ran and I ran and I ran. After 3.5 years, I finished Morehouse, #1 in mathematics, #5 in the largest class Morehouse ever graduated, magna cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa. Thank you. And when I walked off that stage, they put a microphone in front of my face and they said, Kelvin, what are you going to do now? I said, I'll tell you what, man. I'm going to Georgia Tech. It's only 1.5 miles away and a $1.50 bus ride. 2 weeks later, I started Georgia Tech, the school that they say I never should be in. 18 months later, I finished my second undergraduate degree, a BS in mechanical engineering. 2 years after that, I finished a master's in mechanical engineering. 3 degrees in 7 years to the inner city kid who they said never should have been in college in the first place. 4 years after that, in 1996, I became one of 11 African Americans in the country that year to receive a PhD in mechanical engineering. Now, AASHTO, I didn't come here to brag. I came here to tell you that story to let you know that each and every one of us, especially each and every one of our children, have been impregnated with something so great. If they're given access, if they're given equity, and they're given opportunity to give birth to their dream, they'll make Bill Gates look like a midget in the annals of history. But yet and still, too many of our children and too many of us in America have already committed to having abortions on our dreams. Why are we here? Why do we do this work? Is it just about the money? Or is it really about making a difference? Don't get me wrong, engineers do two things. They make stuff and they get paid. But we got to be about making a difference. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be principled in everything that you do. There's no softer pillar than a clear conscience. The mistakes that we've made in the past got to be the guiding North Star for us in the future, to do what's right by every community, to do what's right by everybody. So at STEM NOLA, we bring up to 200 to 300 kids in a gym on a Saturday. We take those 200 to 300 K-12 kids and we surround them with college students. In the last 9 years, we put over $3 million in the hands of college students to work with these K-12 students. Then we ask companies like yours and agencies like yours to sponsor the events. And then we surround those K-12 students with college students, but then we surround those college students with STEM professionals. And you imagine 500 people in a gym on Saturday, all from different backgrounds, races, and ethnicity doing STEM together. We have modules where kids build hydraulic bridges. We had an incident in the city of New Orleans where the Hard Rock Hotel collapsed, and within 30 days we built a module. We had 250 kids in a gym doing STEM on structures. The kids learned about the 5 modes of failures of a beam, and then the kids built their own merry-go-round Ferris wheel with a motor that actually worked. And then every kid leaves with the thing that they built on this Saturday. And that's the transformative part, because when they go home, they can look at their mama, look at their daddy, and say, look what I did. And that's how we build a better engineer with a better head and a better heart. That's the work that we got to do. And together, collectively, we can do that. This is everybody's job to build this pipeline, this workforce talent pipeline of the future. In the short term, you need the people, Roger, that we need. But in the long term, we got to make sure, like Jared said, it takes 20 years or 30 years to build one of these projects. That's how long it takes to make an engineer. That's how long it takes to make a construction worker. So right now in Bridgeport, Connecticut, I got 20 of my employees, got a gym tricked out and kids learning about STEM in all different areas. But in one section of the gym, we have remote control excavators, remote control heavy equipment, remote control cranes, and the kids are playing like at an amusement park trying to work this equipment, because we're trying to get them to understand that this is a possibility for them too. In closing, I just want you all to know, this is about hope. And everything that you do, you got to deliver hope with it. And you got to believe and you cannot forget that what you're doing is impacting lives. And I got to go because I fly a lot. Pre-COVID, I used to fly about 150,000 miles a year on an airplane. And you remember when they started crashing airplanes and they was taking airplanes, my wife said, look, you need to stop flying. I said, no. I said, you need to chill out. She said, no, I'm raising these 2 boys, and you need to be here and these people with the airplanes. I said, look, if my mouth ain't moving, we ain't eating, so I got to go get on that plane. She said, no, we raising these boys, and if something happened to you, I don't know what I'd do. I said, oh, look at you all in love. I said, but look. I said, look, if the plane go down, tell my 2 sons, 1, that I was a man, and 2, I got up every day and tried to answer those existential questions of who am I and why am I here. She said, look, you just need to slow down. I said, look, Tracy, if the plane go down, promise me there's only 1 word I want on my tombstone. She said, stop talking like that, Kelvin. I said, look, if the plane go down, there's only 1 word I want on my tombstone. She said, Kelvin, stop talking like that. I said, look, if the plane go down, you're going to be all right. She said, I don't want to hear that. I said, if the plane go down, you're going to be all right. She said, Rocky, well, how all right am I going to be? I said, double indemnity, all right. She said, look, Kelvin, won't you just consider? I said, look, woman, listen to me one time. Any married people in here? Listen to me one time. She said, what, fool? I said, if the plane go down, promise me there's only 1 word you're going to put on my tombstone. She said, well, what's the word? I said, empty, because I want the world to know I gave it my all. AASHTO, that's all we're asking of you. Give it your all for every community, for every project, and I promise you we can transform a place called America. Thank you all and have a great convention. Thank you for having me.